What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Ketchpalia sitting on the couch, making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today we're going to go over I don't know if that's Probst or I don't know how to say this, but it is Mogul's most recent listing. It's a 8-bedroom, 3-bathroom Padsplit in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Their projected year one yield is 7.91%, average yield is 11.9%, levered IRR is 12%, all projections. This is what we've come to expect from Mogul lately, at least from their, they've put out quite a few of these pad splits, and they're all have been right around the same area as far as projected returns go. It's pretty interesting. They've been selling out really quickly. So obviously there's a lot of demand there, but I've started to hear a lot of people complaining about them because the deals that they're projecting right now are not nearly as good as what they used to be. I think maybe a lot of us earlier investors were sort of spoiled with the quality of the deals that they had. As long as they hit these numbers, I don't imagine that there's another platform where I'd be happier with the average deal that they're putting out. But of course, when we were getting in the 14, 15, 16s, seeing these, that 12 seems to be the new norm. It seems like a lot of people are disappointed in it. One of the things, I think maybe somebody listened to my last video because I complained a lot about I didn't understand what the business plan was. Maybe other people just complained as well. The email for this one was very clear, as is the listing, as exactly what's going on. They're buying this from the seller, and they are outlining what the seller's agreeing to do: furnish all the bedrooms, common areas, up to Mogul standards, beds, desks, mounted TVs, artwork, and they told us what they value that as, $15,000 plus. I think that's very reasonable assessment, for having to do that sort of furnishing and decor. I actually, when I have put budgets together for these for myself, I would typically pick a higher number. So I think that's pretty fair to say that there's that much value from them doing that for us. Putting their property management partner in place, launching it on Padsplit. It'll be launched for 30 days prior to closing, and then it gets into what their underwriting is. So it is a fully renovated property. At least that's what that says. One of the things that I've come to learn in this industry is fully renovated means a lot of different things to different people, right? Most of the time when you see that, it means it's had a full cosmetic renovation. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has a new roof, new HVAC system, new hot water heater. So those things, obviously are just because they say fully renovated, that's how it was listed. I wouldn't necessarily expect that to be the case. And actually, when I was looking at these pictures, it looks like kind of an older roof, but I don't know that that's actually the case. I'm pretty sure that these pictures are touched up as it is because nobody's grass really looks like this. And that's just pretty common in the industry. But yeah, it looks like, there's at least an exterior renovation, the inside, probably new flooring, clearly new appliances. Those do kind of look like original cabinets. So, fully renovated can mean a lot of different things. That's my only point there. Bathrooms look nice though. It looks like that's an upgrade from what it would have been originally. At least this bathroom. This is actually probably the new bathroom because in the prior listing, this was listed as 4-bedroom, 2 baths. I had to look around to find the prior listing. This is when it sold for $170 last year. So you can see they did they at least painted the outside of it. When you read this, step into timeless charm, makes me think that it was all original everything, right? I mean, there's realtor speak, right? Like when they list things, they use certain language. This typically, this was clearly not a recently renovated property, or at least that would be my assumption. I couldn't find any old pictures of the interior. If anybody found that anywhere, I'd love to see it. Please, include that in the Discord. Before I forget, please like and subscribe. In the description to this video, I have links to all the places where I'm currently investing in fractional real estate online, Mogul being one of them. Many of those links are affiliate links. You might get some money. I might get some money. You want to just do your own due diligence on the terms and conditions of that, on the platforms themselves, and on any properties that you see me mention. Just because I invest in something doesn't mean that you should. So you want to dig into those properties and platforms on your own. Also, in the description of this video, I have a link included to a Discord that I created. You are welcome to join that. We have over 200 members now, all people just there to talk about fractional real estate investing across several different platforms. If you do that, please be careful when you're on Discord. I'm not somebody who's going to direct message you and try to sell you any investments or services. So if you're getting that, it's coming from a scammer account, which there are several that are impersonating me at this point. So just be careful about that. But do please join the Discord and jump into that discussion. On almost all the Mogul properties, we see people sharing some due diligence, and then lots of the other platforms as well. And so, yeah, if you were able to find older pictures of the interior, I'd love to see it. So please do include those. But just because of the way this was worded, and because we only had exterior pics, I'm guessing that this was a full renovation, especially because it sold for $170, and then the buyer was a flipper, clearly, because they listed it for $309 recently, and then Mogul has it under contract. I think they have it under contract at the asking price at that $309 price. But you have to remember, they're also getting the furnishing and getting it up and running. So we'll talk about the valuation in a little bit, but let's get some of the easy stuff out of the way. As always, we look at the flood map. This is one of my first concerns everywhere, and it looks pretty good, right? It looks like we're in an unshaded X, which is what I'm always going for. So let's get rid of that. I looked at spot crime. This is about a month and a half of crimes reported, and if you look at it, it's a pretty spread out area that they had to use to get a month, to fill a month and a half. But you did have one just right down the street, which let's click on that and see exactly what it was. Simple assault. So we don't really get any detail on that one. Sometimes you'll get a little bit more in that description there, but yeah, I mean, as far as neighborhoods where you've put pad splits, this doesn't look bad to me at all. I mean, this is one that I would certainly not complain about. All right, let's get rid of the crime map and just take a look at just looking at the map in general. I wanted to show you just where this is in relationship to Atlanta, because this is a submarket of Atlanta or a suburb of Atlanta, but it's pretty far out there. I was actually, because of how far out we are, I was surprised. Where did we go here? That it wasn't too far from a bus stop, but it's also not incredibly close. If I had to walk that far every day, I wouldn't be super happy about it. But it does look like there's plenty of room for parking. So you have a little street parking, although I don't know what the rules are here about being in front of this hydrant. Oh, is there a sign right there that says that we can read? No, that's just a speed limit sign. So I'm not sure. I don't know why it's doing that right now. But there is a lot of land in the front here. Like if we needed to expand the parking, it looks like there's plenty of room to do so right here, which would be easy enough. So it doesn't look great as far as the public transit goes, but it does seem like we should be able to figure out parking if it became a problem. So wasn't too worried about that. Even though, we've looked at the Atlanta numbers quite a bit from different listings, but I wanted to look at actually Stone Mountain, Georgia, what their demographics look like. It is crazy. They had a lot of growth and then a big pullback between 2000 and 2010, and then a lot of growth again. We still haven't hit the peak that they had in 2000. I have no idea why that is. If I were going to invest some money in this property, I might want to figure out what's going on, what happened there. At the same time, the overall trend is really good, but it's also just such a small number, right? So I like the Atlanta numbers in general, and then, trying to figure out, okay, what exactly is going on and what, as far as the giant population swings. It would be kind of important to me, I guess, because it is. I mean, we lost almost 20% of the residents in a 10-year period, and then and then gained a whole bunch of them back. So, yeah, if anybody is familiar with this area and knows what happened during that time period, I'd love to know, because we're only talking about a couple thousand people, or not even, right? Like 1,300 people lost and then 900 gained. But it's more people than, on a percentage basis, it does seem pretty crazy. So I'm curious what's going on there. Home prices in this market. Oh, what happened there? They went down over the past year, 8.9%. This is a very, we're pretty used to seeing this shape, although 8.9 is more than some markets. It's not as bad as some other markets. Zillow thinks it's going up 1.1% over the next year. If you see the shape of this curve, it doesn't look like it bottomed out yet. In some of these that we look at, we see this bottoming out. But 1.1% is, I think, tied with the strongest uptrend that Zillow has given to any of the markets that we looked at. So I like that, but it is, we talk about this all the time. It's going to depend on a ton of macro factors, right? I mean, all these different platforms and people make predictions about what's going to happen in the real estate market. Nobody actually knows. The biggest thing that's going to drive it is, okay, what happens with, interest rates? If they come down, prices everywhere will go up. Like it's a pretty simple formula as far as affordability goes, right? As it is when interest rates went up, we saw a little bit of crash, right? And that's just how it works. So, but I did think this is interesting as far as it's a pretty strong upward projection that Zillow's given us there. All right, let's close that. This was the old listing that I showed you. We already looked at this. As far as valuation, most of these that I haven't bought from Zillow or from Mogul, most of the time, if I haven't bought it, it's because of the valuation. It's because I think that we're overpaying it oftentimes. This one doesn't look so bad to me. I noted there was a lot or some discussion in the Discord and elsewhere about the, it was on the market for a long time at 175 or 170, and now we're buying it for 309. That seems crazy. But it does appear that there was a major renovation. Now, how large it was, I don't know. And this might be a market. So this actually happens sometimes in smaller markets where there's just not really the same number of flippers that there are in other markets, because it's a little bit more of a risky endeavor when you don't have tons of comps, when you don't have, the same. So there's sometimes you see these small markets where you'll see a property that just needs to be flipped, sitting for a very long time. So that could be what's going on here. I really don't know. This isn't a market I know at all. It does seem like it's very unlikely that they bought this for 170 and had to put, that they even put $100,000 into it just from the looks of it. I'm not sure. But it did go from a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom to an 8-bedroom, 3-bathroom. So they did create 4 new bedrooms. They created an extra bathroom. One of the questions that I have about this that is very unclear to me is, how are they doing this in 1,435 square feet? My guess is that there was either additional square feet added somewhere and it's not being picked up anywhere, because this still says 1,435. This says 1,435. The new listings don't show beds, baths, and square footage here on Zillow. Let's see. I think it doesn't show it. I think I found one of them that does show it as an 8.3, but maybe it's just is it on this one? Yeah, 8 bedrooms, 3 baths, but again, no square footage. So I think that we have something going on with the square footage, where they've added some, but it's not being picked up, and so that's real problematic as far as. I think Brad might have posted this chart, this Zillow price chart, right? So it was like, okay, it was way down here. and then shot up once it was listed to 309. Well, why did that happen? Did it happen? Did Zillow and all the other sites just say, oh, that we see this new listing info, so now we're going to use that to adjust our pricing? If they do that, and I think they might do that, that makes it like really useless, right? Because I can go and list any home for any amount of money, but it may be that they picked up on the fact that it had extra bedrooms now, but it's unpaired from square footage, which what they're usually doing is using a square footage calculation. So I don't really know. I mean, this one looks much better, right? Like, okay, I didn't even go into this. So what are we paying? $309 for it. The Zestimate is $305.9. Realtor's real estimate is $309. I mean, it's, I really think this is being influenced by the fact that it's listed for $309. And Redfin says $305, $390, which is just a little bit under the list price. So it's really hard to understand how they came up with that number when all of the little, if you look at the trends and the valuations on these other sites that provide it, do they do it on this one or just on Zillow? No, there's at least a couple other platforms that show you those price trends over time, and I just didn't keep that tab up, I guess. And they show it being, here you can see, they thought it was 225, and then all of a sudden, no, we think it's 330 or 309. Like, it went exactly to the current list price. So I don't know. I mean, that's a little bit odd. The way that Zillow and Redfin and Realtor interact with sold data and listing data is different from one market to the next. It's not the same in every market, and so I don't really know what's going on here. It'd be amazing if someone had MLS access here and could, give us some real comps over time for this. Obviously we can do a little bit of work on homes.com if you remember how we've done that in the past, where you can adjust your search and sold listings and whatnot. That's my favorite one to do that with. Where all three of the third-party websites, though, are so close to the list price, and it does appear that it was, it was fully renovated. It looks like it was a real flip, and that maybe that old price was due to it needing a lot of work. This one seems like one of the most reasonable ones from a valuation perspective in a while, especially because on top of the property, we're getting what they valued as $15,000 worth of furnishing, decor, and whatnot. And I think, again, like I said, I think that valuation seems pretty fair. So like I said, this is, okay. I don't know what happened there. Stupid touch screen. This is, I think, really one of the best ones we've seen for a while, from that perspective. They do have this, the contract was written up pretty strange. So they have like an addendum that says no financing contingency, and it's, marked off. But then in the special stipulations, they have what basically is a financing contingency. So I'm not sure. I guess they just wanted something that was different from what that standard agreement was. And then also in here they have an appraisal, an appraisal contingency as well. I've talked a lot about that in the past. Like, I don't always trust the fact that we have an appraisal doesn't necessarily. I still like to get that third party confirmation. The fact that those three, Zillow, Redfin, Realtor also are backing up that price. One, it's confusing because they don't have the square footage correct, right? Like, I mean, they just are putting no square footage, but it makes me feel better about this one than a lot. But at the same time, I want to know how they're fitting 8 bedrooms in 1,400 square feet. Like I said, I'm assuming there was a garage conversion or something similar. Maybe. I mean, who knows what other space, but you just have to have more square. That's just so small, unless they're just tiny bedrooms, which it didn't. I mean, I just don't think that's the case. I mean, you'd have to have just really tiny bedrooms. So that's a question that if anybody has asked that and got an answer to it, I'd love to hear that. The only other thing I want to look at is the yield projection, because I always pull that up, right? So this is, I'm using Padsplit's tool. I just put the address in, put one ensuite, and then the rest of the bedrooms are sharing. It spits out an effective gross income at $58,425. And so that's, already taking into account move-in fees, vacancy, and collections. And then, so to get to what I think Mogul uses as their top line number, we just want to take this number and then subtract platform fees. And if we did that, it gets us to just under 50,000 if we just use these numbers with no tweaking. And Mogul is projecting in their year one 51.6. So a little bit higher than what I get using the calculator, but close enough that I think it seems reasonable to me. And they have, they are already managing a bunch in this market. And I think what they believe is with the package, as far as what they're putting in for furnishing and TVs and desks and the way that their properties are run, I guess they just assume they're going to do a little bit better than what the average is that's being spit out by that calculator. I think that's pretty safe. Only time will tell. They put out a whole bunch of these in the last couple of months, and we won't know for the next year how good they were at making those projections. I don't have any reason to think that they're not going to do, that they're going to be way off, because so far, overall, I've been impressed with the way that, lots of things that Mogul does. And I think, they're real estate professionals. And I mention all this all the time, but just in case this is the first video, but just because I trust them doesn't mean that you should, right? You want to really dig into the assumptions that they're making. You want to ask them questions just like I did in the beginning. And really try to get an understanding of like how they're going about doing this. The last thing, and that's why I waited here too, is I always like to shut off the refinance and see what that does to the returns. Okay, drops it down to 11.2 and 10.9. Really not that bad. What's their financing assumption? Yeah, still using 6.75% as the financing assumption as well. So that really hasn't changed with the little fluctuation we've seen in interest rates. So let's see. Overall, I like this one more than a lot of the recent ones, but my biggest concerns, my number one concern is what's our actual square footage, right? Because I just don't believe 1,400 is the number. If they did create bedrooms in square footage that doesn't count as livable square footage, one of the things Mogul has talked about in the past is part of their due diligence is making sure that, renovations were done fully permitted and, approved, and what was done was done legally. And so, I don't typically verify that when I buy properties that they've listed. I've taken their word for that. So far, I haven't been given any reason not to. And actually checking on that is, very difficult in a lot of municipalities. So, but I want to at least know the answer to the question, which is, was there additional square footage created during, additional livable square footage created during the renovation? And if so, how much? Because in general, when you're doing 8 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, I think the smallest space I'm going to want to put that in is going to be about 2,000 square feet. So did we add 600 square feet somewhere to get there? I don't know. Other than that, though, if we did add that livable square footage, it would explain most of the increase in value. And then, I think the cosmetic renovation could definitely make up the rest of it. And then I'd be pretty happy with this one. Like I'll probably ask that question if I get around to it tomorrow. And then there's there's the button here. It's only on some of the screens, I've noticed. Sometimes you don't have the button to ask, but on this one I've got it. So I might just ask them that question and figure out what's actually going on there. Because if it is, that's like, That's like the last real concern I have on this one. And then I just have to decide, okay, does that year one right around 8% yield? Am I happy with that? Because I do have quite a few of their pad splits in Atlanta. I think if I didn't already, and I got an answer I'm happy with about the square footage of the home, this would be an easy purchase for me. This is the first one I've said that for in a while. But it is an important, outstanding question. So I'll probably ask that. If anybody's already asked it, please put the answer in the, feel free to comment in this video or put it in, jump in the Discord and answer it there. It's, if any of you have asked it in like some of the clubs, people do that as well. And you found an answer, please let me know. I think that's everything that I want to say about this one today. Let's see if that's true. Just give you a little quick scroll. Yeah, if I didn't already say so, please like and subscribe. And until next time, let me just double check. Yep, that's everything I was going to say. Until next time, I'm just going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.